There are some moments in life that split your timeline in two. Before and after. For Frida Okafor, that moment came at 8:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. Before 8:43 p.m., she was just a tired Nigerian single mom, a senior nurse at Lekki Hospital, a woman who'd learned how to stretch one salary across school fees, rent, transport, and the dreams of a 17-year-old girl named Dorothy. After 8:43 p.m., she became something else. A mother whose child had been taken. A woman standing at the edge of a world she never wanted to enter. A woman who would make a deal with a Korean Mafia boss and trade her peace, her reputation, and maybe even her heart for one impossible promise. I will bring your daughter back, but you won't get her for free. Stay with this story till the end, because the price he asks for is not money. It's much worse and much more dangerous. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something. Tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city and country in the comments right now. Lagos, Seoul, Nairobi, London, New York, Johannesburg, Accra. This is an Afro-Korean mafia story that moves between worlds. And I want to see your world in that comment section. So pause for 2 seconds, scroll down. Type, watching from your city, your country. Then come right back. 'Cause now we go to Lagos. And we meet Frida. Frida Okafor didn't believe in luck. Luck hadn't helped her when Dorothy's father walked out before she was born. Luck didn't pay the bills when she worked night shifts and dragged herself home on shaking legs. Luck didn't sit with dying patients at 3 a.m. when family members had already given up hope. No, Frida believed in effort, in routine, in timing, in doing things properly. Every morning was the same. 4:45 a.m. alarm. 5 a.m. kettle on tea, quick prayer. 5:15 a.m. check Dorothy's room. 5 seconds of quiet joy just looking at her daughter's face. Long lashes against dark skin. Curly hair spread messy on the pillow. One hand always thrown over her head like she was reaching for something even in her sleep. Dorothy, Frida would whisper. My future engineer. Wake up, Omomi. A new day. Dorothy would groan, pull the pillow over her head. Then finally sit up with that half-annoyed, half-playful squint. Mom, why do you talk like those motivational speakers? Let me just be sleeping engineer for now. Frida would laugh. No, my dear. There is no sleeping engineer. Only working engineer. Stand up. She packed her daughter's lunch. Checked her bag. Checked the iron on her uniform blouse. Checked the gas. Checked the door twice. Routine. The thing about routine is, it tricks you. It makes you believe you are safe because you are consistent. That Tuesday had started like any other. It did not feel like the day that would break her. Dorothy was supposed to be at her best friend Amara's house in Ikoyi. Ikoyi was supposed to be safe. Old money houses. Quiet streets. Security guards who knew every face that passed through. Frida had driven Dorothy there herself at 4 p.m. Mom, don't embarrass me, I beg. Dorothy had laughed when Frida insisted on walking her all the way to the gate. I'm already embarrassing you by existing, Frida replied. Let me do it fully. At the gate, Amara's mother waved. Ah, Nurse Frida. Don't worry, she's safe here. Oh. I know, Frida had said. If she misbehaves, just tell me. I'll collect her at home. Dorothy had rolled her eyes, kissed her mother's cheek quickly when she thought no one was looking, and disappeared inside. At 4:25 p.m., Frida got the usual text. I'm here, Mom. We're starting. Routine. At 7:30 p.m., she got another text. We're still studying. I'll call when we're done. Routine. At 8:43 p.m., her phone rang. A strange number. She almost didn't answer it. It was late. Scam calls, loan sharks, wrong numbers. Lagos at night carried all kinds of voices. But something tugged at her. She picked up. Hello. Silence for a second. Then a man's voice. Calm. Too calm. Is this Frida Okafor? Yes. Who is? Your daughter, Dorothy, is with us. The world didn't explode. It didn't spin. It just flatlined. Frida's heart stopped and then began to pound so hard it hurt. What do you mean, with you? She said, her voice thinning around the edges. She is safe, the man continued. For now. For now. Those 2 words entered her bloodstream like poison. What do you want? She whispered. 2 million naira, the voice said. You have until midnight tomorrow. If you call the police, if you tell anyone who can cause trouble, if you try to be clever, your daughter stops being safe. Do you understand? Frida swallowed dryness. I want to hear her voice. A pause. Then another voice. Mom. Dorothy. Faint. Afraid. Breathing too fast. Dorothy. Baby. Are you hurt? No, Dorothy said, voice trembling. I'm okay. The phone snatched back. Now you know she's alive, the man said. 2 million. Midnight tomorrow. We will call with instructions. Keep your phone on. The line went dead. Frida stood in the middle of her tiny sitting room, phone pressed to her ear, staring at nothing. The refrigerator hummed. A generator in a neighboring building rattled quietly. Lagos traffic murmured in the distance. Everything sounded the same. Nothing was the same. 2 million naira. Frida's mind did the math automatically. Her current savings. 680,000. Her small emergency stash hidden in a biscuit tin. 120,000. Total. 800,000. She needed 1.2 million more. She moved before she fully realized. Her body knew what to do. Fight. Gather. Call. Try. She called her younger sister Nkechi in Abuja. Nkechi, I need help. It's Dorothy. They've taken her. What? Who? Where are you, Frida? Have you called the police? No police, Frida said sharply, hearing the kidnapper's warning echoing in her head. They'll kill her. I need money. Whatever you can send me. I'll explain later. Nkechi didn't hesitate. I have 150,000 I can move immediately. I'll send it now. Frida, please breathe. Frida thanked her. Cut the call. She called her mother next. Even though the older woman's blood pressure couldn't handle this level of news. Mama, Dorothy is sick, Frida lied. I need money for some things. Can you send me any small thing? Her mother didn't have much, but she had 50,000 saved from selling wrappers over months. I'll send you everything, she said, not asking for details because she trusted her daughter. Colleagues, church members, old friends, people whose hospital bills she had once quietly subsidized. Please. I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't an emergency. By 1 a.m. she had commitments totaling 1.2 million. Added to her 800,000, it made 2 million. On paper. But not all the funds had arrived. Some would take until morning. Some would not come at all. And even if the money came in time, another thought pressed in on her chest like a weight. What if I pay? And they don't give her back? Money solves many things. It didn't solve faith in criminals. At some point in that spiraling panic, another idea surfaced. An idea with a face. A man in a hospital bed 6 months earlier. Dark eyes, calm voice. A gunshot wound covered in blood. And the way he had looked at her when she refused to treat him like a monster. Minjun Choi. 6 months before the kidnapping, Lekki Hospital had received a call. A private number. A quiet male voice. A VIP patient is being brought in with a gunshot wound, the man had said. You will treat him. No police. He will pay in cash. A lot of cash. Make sure he does not die. In Lagos, this was not unheard of. The ambulance had arrived 15 minutes later. 2 men wheeled in a tall Korean man, half-conscious, shirt soaked in blood. A bullet had entered his side, low near the hip, but the bleeding was worrying. The hospital administrator had met them at the door, pale but professional. Nurse Frida, he'd called. You're on this case. Treat him like any other patient. And don't ask questions. Yes, sir. Bed 14. Private room. Security outside. Frida had cut away the blood-soaked shirt, gloved hands moving with trained precision. BP dropping, the doctor had said. We need blood, stat. Through it all, the Korean man's eyes had stayed on Frida's face. He didn't look scared. He looked interested. Don't die here, please, Frida had muttered under her breath while applying pressure. If you want to die, die in your own house. I don't have strength for police case. To her surprise, the man had laughed. Just a tiny strangled sound. You're funny, he'd managed, voice rough with pain. I'm serious, she'd replied. If you die here, you'll spoil my whole week. He'd gone under anesthesia with a faint smile. The surgery had been successful. For the next 3 weeks, Frida had been his primary nurse. His name was Min-Jun Choi. On the surface, he was a Korean businessman with interests in real estate, shipping, and logistics. But the number of armed men outside his room, the way chief executives and politicians came to whisper with him, the way every instruction he gave was obeyed instantly, all of it said something else. He was a boss, the kind of man who could make people disappear with a phone call. He never shouted. He never threatened. He didn't need to. One afternoon, she'd found him staring out the window, quiet. "How long have you been a nurse?" he'd asked. 14 years, she'd said. "Why?" he asked. "Nursing is hard. The pay is bad. The hours are worse. Why do you do it?" "Because people die less often when I'm there," she'd replied simply. "And sometimes they die better." He'd been silent, then nodded. "You're a good mother," he'd said later, after she'd mentioned Dorothy. "I can tell by the way you talk about your daughter. Every sentence you say about yourself eventually ends with her." When he was discharged, he'd left an envelope for her at the nurse's station. 500,000 naira. More than her monthly salary. She'd chased after the messenger. "Tell him I can't accept this," she'd said. The messenger had smiled. "Madam, he said you would say that. He said to tell you it's not charity, it's respect," he said. "She treated me like a human being when I was bleeding like an animal." She didn't flinch. Frida had kept the money. But she had also kept the number on the back of the envelope. "Call if you ever need help," the note attached had said. She never thought she'd use it. Until now. At 1:17 a.m., with 1.2 million naira still unconfirmed and her heart beating in a rhythm that hurt, Frida took out her phone. Her thumb hovered over the Korean number. "He's a criminal," her mind hissed. "He's dangerous. He's exactly the kind of man you should stay far away from. But he's also a man who gets things done," another voice whispered. "He's a man who makes calls and things move." And right now she didn't need morality. She needed results. She dialed. 1 ring. 2. 3. She almost hung up. Then, "Yes." His voice was exactly as she remembered it. Calm. Deep. Slightly husky. "Mr. Choi," she said, trying to keep her voice level. "It's Frida. Nurse Frida. From Lekki Hospital." A pause. Then a change in tone. "Frida," he said, like the name meant something to him. "It's late. Are you all right?" "No," she said, and suddenly her throat clawed tight. "No, I'm not all right. My daughter, Dorothy, they've taken her." She gave him the details in fractured sentences, the call, the ransom, the deadline, the amount. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer sympathy. He listened. When she finished, there was a noise on the line. A soft exhale. "Where are you?" he asked. "At home. Ikoyi. Is anyone with you?" "No." "Good," he said. "Stay there. Don't call the kidnappers back. Don't call the police. Don't call anyone else. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The line went dead. Frida stood in the middle of her living room, heart hammering, staring at the phone. She had just invited a Mafia boss into her life. And he was on his way. Exactly 28 minutes later, a black SUV stopped in front of her building. No sirens. No noise. Just quiet efficiency. From her window, Frida watched 2 men step out. One was huge, broad shoulders, silent, eyes scanning everything. Security. The other was Min-Jun. Dark shirt. Dark trousers. Clean lines. No jewelry. No flash. Power doesn't need decoration. He moved up the stairs like he'd climbed these exact steps 1,000 times. Like this was another operation, another job, another night. But when she opened the door and he saw her face, eyes swollen from crying, hand shaking on the handle, something in his expression softened for a fraction of a second. "Frida," he said. "May I come in?" She stepped aside. He walked in, followed by the big man, who closed the door and stayed near it, silent. Min-Jun didn't sit down immediately. He walked through the small sitting room, taking in photos on the wall. Dorothy's graduation from JSS 3. Dorothy in a school uniform, smiling. Frida holding a baby. Frida in a nurse's uniform, exhausted but grinning. "Tell me everything," he said, turning back to her. She did. This time with more detail. The sound of the man's voice. The faint tremor in Dorothy's. The exact wording of the threats. The deadline. He listened like a surgeon planning a cut. When she finished, he asked a single question. The voice. Nigerian or foreign? Nigerian, she said. But not Yoruba. Not Hausa. The accent. Igbo maybe. But also something off. Like he learned English in school, not from the street. Minjun exchanged a look with the big man. Igbo cartel, the big man said, his first words. Most likely, Minjun nodded. He turned back to Frida. You have the money? I have some, she said. I've called family, friends, church. I have commitments. I can gather 2 million by the deadline, but not before morning. I thought maybe you could lend me the difference. I will pay you back. I swear to God I will work 3 jobs, I will. He raised a hand. I don't loan money to mothers for their children, he said quietly. That would make me something worse than I already am. Her chest tightened. Then you can't help me. I didn't say that, he replied. I'll get your daughter back. The money is not the issue. The issue is control. He sat down finally, gesturing for her to sit opposite him. Frida perched on the edge of the chair, hands clenched. Here's what's going to happen, Minjun said. They will call again with instructions on where to bring the money. You will agree. You will sound scared. You will obey. You will ask no questions. Then you will call me with the details. But they said. They always say that, he interrupted gently. They say no police, no calling anyone because they assume you will call the police. You didn't call them. You called me. That was smart. Was it? She whispered. I called a criminal instead of the police. Yes, he said. You called a criminal who understands criminals. The police will open a file. I will open doors and bullets. There is a difference. The big man near the door shifted slightly, as if agreeing. Frida felt like someone had opened a window in a burning room. Air. Action. Something. But also something else. What will you want in return? She asked. Because I know you. You don't do anything for free. A ghost of a smile. You're direct. I like that about you. I'm desperate, she said. Not stupid. He held her gaze. I saved your life once, she said softly. Now I'm asking you to save my daughter's. After that, what do I owe you? He looked at her for a long time. That, he said, will depend on how this night goes. For now you owe me one thing. What? Trust. Frida didn't sleep. She sat in her living room with Minjun's burner phone in her hand, watching the minutes crawl toward dawn. The big man, who introduced himself simply as Park, sat near the window, alert, eyes barely blinking. Minjun had left after an hour, but not before giving her instructions. When they call, he'd said, you will sound frightened, but you will not sound hysterical. You will agree to whatever they ask. You will ask no questions. You will do exactly what they tell you. The moment they hang up, you call this number. He'd handed her the burner phone. You don't call it before. You don't text it. You don't tell them about it. Understood. Understood, she'd whispered. Your daughter is already safe, he'd added. And there was something in his voice that made her believe him. Trust me, Frida. She will come home. Now, alone except for Park's silent presence, Frida tried to hold on to that promise like it was a life raft. At 6:47 a.m., her personal phone rang. Same unknown number. Her hands shook as she answered. Frida Okafor? The voice was different. Younger. More aggressive. Yes, she managed. You have the money? I'm gathering it, she said, letting fear into her voice. It wasn't difficult. Not everything is ready yet. I need until noon. Noon is fine, the voice said. Listen carefully. You will bring the money to the warehouse on Lekiepe Expressway. You know it? The abandoned one near the old petrol station. Her mind raced. Yes, I know it. You come alone. 2 a.m. tonight. You bring the money in a bag. A single bag. You walk into the warehouse. You leave the bag on the ground. You walk back out. You go to your car and you wait. How long do I wait? She asked. We verify the money. If everything is correct, if it's exactly 2 million, if you haven't marked the bills, if you haven't put GPS trackers in it, then we release your daughter at the petrol station. She will be 500 meters away. She will call you. You pick her up. Everyone goes home. I want to hear her voice again, Frida said. Before I give you money. A pause. Then, okay. 1 second. Muffled sounds. Footsteps. Then Dorothy's voice trembling. Mom? Mom, I'm okay. I'm really okay. They haven't. I'm okay. Dorothy, baby, listen to me. That's enough, the first voice interrupted. You heard her. She's fine. Keep her fine by doing exactly what we said. 2 a.m. Warehouse. Alone. 2 million. The line went dead. Frida immediately called the burner phone. Minjun answered on the first ring. They called, she said. Lekki Ape Expressway. The warehouse near the old petrol station. 2 a.m. I'm supposed to drop the money and wait at the petrol station for Dorothy. I know the location, Minjun said. There was a sound like a door closing. Then another voice in the background speaking rapid Korean. Listen to me carefully. You will not go to that warehouse. But they said. They always say things, he interrupted. Frida, if you go to that warehouse alone at 2 a.m. with 2 million naira, 2 things happen. First, they take your money. Second, they take you. They will rob you and possibly kill you. Your daughter will not be released. She will be moved deeper into the network. Frida's stomach dropped. The network. These are not simple kidnappers, Minjun said, his voice low and serious. These are traffickers. They took your daughter to test whether they could move her. They called you because they realized you have access to money. Now they're thinking, why give her back for 2 million when she might be worth 2 million a year to the right buyer? The room began to spin. What do I do? She whispered. You do nothing, he said. I will handle this. You will drive to the petrol station, the exact location they mentioned. You will arrive at 1:45 a.m. You will park your car. You will wait. Dorothy will arrive in a car with one of my people at 2:15 a.m. You take her. You go home. You don't ask questions. You don't thank anyone. You don't mention any of this to anyone. Understood? How will you? Don't ask, he said. I'm asking you to trust me. Can you do that? Frida closed her eyes. She was about to hand her daughter's life to a criminal. Yes, she said. I trust you. The hours between the phone call and 1:45 a.m. were the longest of Frida's life. She couldn't think. Couldn't sit still. Couldn't do anything but pace her small apartment, phone in hand, jumping at every sound. Park had left at noon, replaced by 2 different men who sat silently in her living room, reading newspapers, drinking tea, completely at ease in the space of someone else's terror. At 12:30 p.m., Frida had to go to work. She called the hospital. I'm very sorry, she told her supervisor. I have a family emergency. I cannot come in today. Is everything all right? Her supervisor asked, concerned. Family issue, Frida repeated. I will call you when I know more. She stayed home, jumping at her phone every 5 minutes. She made tea she didn't drink. She took a shower and stood under the water for 30 minutes, letting it run cold, trying to feel something other than dread. She sat on Dorothy's bed and held her daughter's pillow, inhaling the scent of her shampoo. She's coming home tonight, she told herself. Minjun said she's coming home. She will come home. But what if he was wrong? What if he was lying? What if this was all part of something larger and darker? At 6 p.m. her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She's safe. I'm bringing her to you. Trust me. Only 2 words were different from what Minjun had said, but they steadied her. At 1:30 p.m., one of the silent men drove her to the petrol station. The warehouse district at night was another country. Industrial, empty, dangerous. Abandoned buildings hulked against the dark sky. The petrol station was closed, locked, but the security lights cast strange shadows across the parking lot. Frida pulled her car into a position where she could see the road clearly. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She turned off the engine and waited. Every car that passed made her heart leap. Every sound made her grip the steering wheel tighter. At 2:13 a.m., a black car turned into the petrol station. Frida's breath caught. The passenger door opened. And Dorothy stumbled out. Frida didn't remember leaving her car. She didn't remember crossing the distance between them. One moment Dorothy was stepping out of the black car. The next moment Frida was holding her, really holding her, not as a nurse with trained hands but as a mother with desperate hands, pulling her close, breathing in her hair, feeling her ribs to make sure she was real, her heartbeat to make sure she was alive. Dorothy, Dorothy, baby, I'm here, you're safe, you're okay. Mom. Dorothy was crying, clinging to her neck. Mom, I was so scared, I didn't know what they wanted, I didn't know if… I know, it's okay, you're home now, you're safe. They held each other for minutes that felt like hours or seconds. Frida had no sense of time anymore. Over Dorothy's shoulder she saw the black car. Minjun was standing beside it, watching them with an expression she couldn't read. He was not smiling. He was not celebrating. He was simply observing the way a surgeon observes a successful operation. He made a gesture. The driver of the black car, a large man who looked like he'd been through wars, gave a small nod and got back in the vehicle. The car pulled away silently. Minjun stood for a moment longer, his eyes meeting Frida's across the distance. Then he followed the car. She didn't see him go. She was too busy holding her daughter, too busy thanking God, too busy confirming that Dorothy was breathing and real and here. We have to go, Dorothy whispered. He said we have to go. Okay, Frida said. Okay, baby. We're going home. They got in the car. Frida drove with one hand on the wheel and one hand on Dorothy's knee, unable to break contact, unable to believe it was real. Tell me what happened, she said quietly. Dorothy's voice came in fractured pieces. She had been studying at Amara's house. At around 6 p.m. Amara had gone to the bathroom. 3 men had come to the door. They'd said they were university admission officials conducting a home visit. Amara's mother had let them in. They'd asked Dorothy to come with them to sign some documents. She'd gone, thinking nothing of it. The car had turned away from the expected direction. Then a gun had appeared. They didn't hurt me, Dorothy said, which was both a relief and somehow worse. It suggested professional operation, not random violence. They just told me to be quiet and it would be okay. They put me in a room. It was clean. They gave me food. I could see a light under the door. I could hear voices sometimes. But, Mom, it was like they were calculating. Like they were testing something. Testing what? Frida asked. Testing if you would pay, Dorothy said. Testing if you were important enough to make money off of. Testing if you would involve the police or if you would do what they asked. I think I wasn't the target. I think you were. Frida's hands tightened on the wheel. Of course, Minjun had said as much, but hearing it from Dorothy made it real in a different way. They wanted a woman they could break. A mother who would do anything. They'd found the right target. Except that Frida had called Minjun. And now, somehow, she was going to have to explain to her traumatized daughter exactly who had come to her rescue. Frida kept Dorothy home from school. She told the school that Dorothy had a stomach bug. She told her mother that Dorothy was fine, just resting. She told her colleagues that she was taking a personal day. What she actually did was sit with her daughter on their bed, holding her hand, listening while Dorothy talked and cried and sometimes laughed in that slightly hysterical way that comes after surviving something terrible. At around 2 p.m., Frida's personal phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. She was done with unknown numbers. But something told her to. Hello. It's me, Minjun said. I need you to bring Dorothy to meet with me. Not as a prisoner. As a consultation. A consultation, Frida repeated flatly. They came after her, he said. They know who she is now. They know where she lives. They will try again unless she understands the reality of her situation. I need to speak with her. I need her to understand that there are people in this world who will hurt her for sport, and she needs to be prepared for that possibility. She's traumatized, Frida said. Yes, Minjun said. That's why I need to speak with her. Trauma without understanding becomes wound. Trauma with understanding becomes scar. I'm offering to help her build scar tissue instead of keeping the wound open. Frida wanted to refuse. Wanted to protect her daughter from any further involvement with this man and his world. But she also knew he was right. Okay, she said. When? Tomorrow. 3 p.m. I'll send a car. The car that arrived the next afternoon was different from the ones Frida had seen before. It was elegant, understated, the kind of car that belonged to a successful businessman rather than a criminal. The driver was the same large man from the petrol station. He introduced himself as Park. "Mr. Choi is waiting for you at his office," he said. The office was in Ikoyi, in a building that looked like 1,000 other corporate buildings. Park took them to the top floor, a private space that had been converted into something between an office and a home. Minjun was waiting. He looked different in daylight. Younger. More human. Less like a force of nature and more like a man who happened to have terrible power. Dorothy was nervous, standing close to Frida, but not terrified. As if something in her recognized that this was a different kind of danger, the kind you could negotiate with rather than the kind that simply took. "Dorothy," Minjun said, sitting across from her at a low table with tea and small cakes that Park had prepared. "I'm Minjun. You can call me Minjun or Mr. Choi. Whatever is comfortable." "You saved me," Dorothy said flatly. "I extracted you," Minjun said. "That's not the same as saving. Saving implies making you safe. Extracting means removing you from danger. The cartel that took you will try again, unless they understand that taking you is more expensive than leaving you alone." Dorothy processed this. "How?" she asked. "That's not your concern," Minjun said. "What's your concern is understanding that you're now a known entity in a criminal network. The Igbo cartel knows your name, your face, your mother, your school. They've made calculations about your value. Those calculations won't change just because I took you back." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at Legos sprawling below. "I'm going to offer your mother protection," he said, still facing the window. "I'm going to offer your family a choice. You can continue living as you have been, looking over your shoulders, jumping at every unexpected sound, never knowing if tonight is the night they come back. Or you can accept that I will provide security until the threat level has decreased to acceptable levels." He turned back to face them. "That protection will come with a cost. Not money. Something else. I need to understand something about human nature. And I think you and your mother might help me understand it." "What?" Dorothy asked, eyes narrowed. "Why some people maintain their humanity in a world that rewards cruelty," Minjun said. "Why your mother sacrificed everything for you. Why she called someone like me instead of running to the police. I want to understand the architecture of that kind of thinking." Dorothy looked at her mother. Frida looked back. "If we do this," Frida said slowly, "what happens after? What's the end game?" "The end game," Minjun said, "is that the immediate threat is eliminated. The cartel understands that you're under my protection, and that touching you would be significantly more expensive than leaving you alone. After that, you're free to leave. You can go back to your apartment, your life, your normal existence. I won't hold you." "But I'll owe you," Frida said. "Yes," Minjun said. "You'll owe me. That's how relationships work. People who matter to each other end up owing each other things." There was something in the way he said it, relationships, things that matter, that made Frida's heart move in a way she didn't want to acknowledge. "How long?" Dorothy asked. "Until I judge the threat has been sufficiently addressed," Minjun said. "Probably a few weeks. Maybe a month. It depends on how the cartel responds when they discover what has happened to them." Dorothy looked at her mother again. Frida realized that in this moment, her daughter was no longer a child being protected. She was a young woman being offered a choice. "I'll do it," Dorothy said. "I want to understand why he's helping us anyway." Minjun smiled. It was the first genuine smile Frida had seen from him, and it changed his face completely. "Good," he said. "Then we begin tomorrow. For now, let me show you something." He led them deeper into the building. What had seemed like an office was revealed to be something larger, a private compound actually. There was a garden, a library, a kitchen, living spaces that spoke of someone who had built a home inside a fortress. "Your mother will stay here," he said to Dorothy. "You will stay here. You will have your own rooms. You will be safe. And you will help me understand the mysteries of human goodness." If you're following this story, you're probably thinking one of three things right now. 1. This woman is crazy for trusting a criminal. 2. This is actually kind of romantic and I'm uncomfortable about it. Or 3. Wait, where is this going? What's the actual cost here? All three are correct. Comment below which one you're thinking. Comment right now. Don't wait till the end. I want to know if your Team Frida is making a mistake, or Team Frida is actually playing 4D chess, or Team I'm confused and slightly turned on. Seriously, comment, because this next part is where everything gets complicated. Now we continue. Frida tried to maintain her life as it had been. She still went to work at Lekki Hospital. She still wore her nurse's uniform. She still worked her shifts and cared for patients and tried to pretend that her home was still the small apartment in Ikoyi. But her home was gone. Every evening, she drove to Minjun's compound. Dorothy was already there, finishing schoolwork, spending time in the library, having conversations with Minjun about philosophy and human nature and the architecture of good and evil. What do you talk about? Frida asked one evening, watching her daughter read peacefully on the compound's terrace. He asks me questions, Dorothy said. He asks me why I believe the things I believe. He asks me what I would do in impossible situations. He asks me about you. He asks me about the future. It's interesting. It's like he's studying me. Does that bother you? Frida asked. No, Dorothy said. Because I'm studying him too. I'm trying to figure out if he's actually good or if he just plays good really well. Have you figured it out? Frida asked. No, Dorothy said. I don't think it's that simple. I think he's both. At work, Frida's colleagues noticed the change in her. She was quieter, more distant. She wore better clothes. Her hair was done more carefully. When she looked at her phone, her expression changed, softened into something that looked like anticipation. Frida, her supervisor, asked after a shift one day, "Is everything okay? You seem different." "I'm fine," Frida said, which was technically true and completely misleading. What she actually was terrified. Because something was happening that she hadn't anticipated. Something more dangerous than kidnapping or criminals or crime networks. She was falling in love. 3 weeks into living at the compound, Minjun asked Frida to have dinner with him. Just the two of them. Dorothy had been given a room on a different floor of the compound, and explicit instructions not to leave it for the evening. Park was there to make sure she complied. Frida understood what this meant. She dressed carefully. A simple dress, but one that fit well. She did her makeup for the first time in weeks. She let her hair down instead of tying it up. When she came down to the dining area, Minjun was already there, wearing dark slacks and a charcoal shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked like he'd just come from somewhere important and couldn't be bothered changing. But his eyes when he saw her were completely focused. "You're beautiful," he said simply. "You shouldn't say things like that," Frida said, sitting across from him. "Why not?" he asked. "It's the truth. 'Cause I'm grateful to you. Because my gratitude might be making me mistake other things for feelings. Because you're..." She struggled for words. "Complicated." "Yes," Minjun said. "I'm complicated. I'm also a man who cares about you. Those things can exist simultaneously." He'd prepared the food himself. It was Korean marinated beef, vegetables, rice, soup with an umami depth that suggested hours of preparation. Everything was perfect. Everything was deliberate. "You learned to cook like this in Seoul?" Frida asked, trying to fill the silence with something other than the sound of her own heart. "Before Seoul," Minjun said. "Before crime. Before any of this. I was going to open a restaurant in Seoul. I thought I would feed people. Create beauty through food. Then I met someone who offered me money to deliver some things, and one thing led to another, and suddenly I was doing very different things." "Do you regret it?" Frida asked. He looked at her across the table. "Every day," he said. "And never. Regret is a luxury for people who have different options. I built an empire because it was the only way I could survive in Seoul. And then I built it bigger because it was the only way I could protect people I cared about. And now..." He paused. "Now I'm wondering if there are other options I never considered." "Like what?" Frida asked. "Like being the kind of person who deserves to be loved by someone like you," he said. "Like being the kind of man who can build things instead of destroying them. Like being the kind of person who can be worthy of a woman's trust instead of just demanding it through fear." Frida didn't know what to say. "I'm not asking you for anything," Minjun continued. "I'm not asking you to forgive me for being a criminal. I'm not asking you to change what I am. I'm just being honest. You asked why I'm protecting you. That's why. Because somewhere in the middle of being a criminal and a businessman and a dangerous man, I became someone who wanted to be better. And you're the first person I've met who suggested that better was actually possible. After dinner, they sat on the terrace overlooking Lagos. The city lights sprawled below them like a promise that had never been kept. If I touch you right now, Minjun said, not moving, it will change things. We won't be able to pretend anymore that this is simply protection or philosophical consultation or debt repayment. It will become something else. Is that bad? Frida asked. For you, yes, he said. Because it means attaching yourself to a man who carries violence with him. It means accepting that people will judge you for it. It means understanding that there will always be a part of my world that you'll never fully understand. And that will hurt sometimes. I'm a single mother who called a mafia boss for help, Frida said quietly. I don't think my reputation could get much worse. And I stopped caring what people judged me for the moment I understood that their judgment was based on fear instead of understanding. Minjun reached out very slowly. He touched her hand. It was the gentlest gesture from the most dangerous man she'd ever met. Then let me be honest about what I want, he said. I want to know you. Not as a nurse. Not as a mother. As a woman. I want to understand what makes you stay moral when the world rewards the opposite. I want to understand why you chose to trust me. And I want. He paused, searching for words. I want to be the kind of man who deserves that trust. Frida turned her hand over so their palms touched. I'm scared, she said. Good, Minjun said. You should be. Fear means you understand the stakes. He leaned forward very slowly, and he kissed her. It was not rough or demanding. It was careful, deliberate, like he was being trusted with something precious and he understood the responsibility of that. When he pulled back, Frida's eyes were closed. You can still leave, he said. Tomorrow morning, I'll have a car take you and Dorothy back to your apartment. No debt, no obligation. You just leave. Frida opened her eyes. What if I don't want to leave? She asked. Then we figure this out, he said. Together. Whatever this is. A week later, everything changed again. Frida was leaving the hospital at 6 p.m. when she noticed the car. It was 3 blocks behind her, then 2 blocks behind her. When she changed lanes on the expressway, it changed lanes. When she slowed down, it slowed down. Her heart began to race. She immediately called Minjun. Someone's following me, she said. A dark car. Behind me on the expressway. Keep driving, he said. Don't acknowledge that you've noticed. I'm sending people to intercept. Head to the address I'm about to give you. He gave her a location. She drove there directly. When she arrived, Minjun was waiting. But he looked different. Not like the careful, almost gentle man who'd kissed her on the terrace. He looked like exactly what he was. A man capable of violence. The Igbo cartel, he said. It wasn't a question. You know who it was? I know who it is, he said. They're making a move. They've decided that what I did to extract your daughter is a threat to their operations. They're escalating. What does that mean? Frida asked. It means I need to make a decision, Minjun said. And it means I need you to make one too. He drove her to the compound, where Dorothy was waiting anxiously. They're coming for us? Dorothy asked. They're probing, Minjun said. Testing my defenses. Trying to understand if I'm willing to go to war over a nurse and a teenager. They want to know if you're worth enough to me to make this personal. He looked at Frida. The question, he said, is, are you willing to live here? Not visiting. Living. Under my roof, under my protection, under circumstances where everyone will understand that you're under my sphere. People will make assumptions. People will judge you. Frida understood what he was asking. He was asking her to publicly attach herself to a criminal. He was asking her to sacrifice her reputation, her position in society, her ability to exist as a respectable single mother. He was asking her to trust him completely. If I do this, Frida said, what happens next? Do we live in this compound forever? Do I become another person you control? No, Minjun said. We live here until the threat is contained. Then you're free to leave if you want to. You can go back to your apartment. You can go back to your life. You can leave me. But I'll owe you, Frida said. Yes, Minjun said. You'll owe me. People who matter to each other end up owing each other things. He paused. But I need you to know something, he continued. I'm not doing this as a transaction. I'm doing this because I love you. And I'm going to eliminate this threat, because I can't imagine a world where you're not in it. Dorothy made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Are you really saying that? Frida asked. I'm saying that, Minjun confirmed. I'm saying that a woman treated me like a human being when I was bleeding like an animal. I'm saying that she showed me that goodness is possible. I'm saying that I want to spend whatever time I have on this earth being worthy of that example. I'm saying that I love you, Frida. I know it's complicated. I know it's wrong by most moral standards. I'm saying it anyway. Frida looked at her daughter. Dorothy nodded slightly. Okay, Frida said. We'll stay. We'll do this. It came at 2:15 a.m. The compound's alarm system activated. Not a panic alarm, but a combat alert. Every light in the compound blazed on at once. Minjun was already awake. He seemed to sleep very little, and what sleep he got was the sleep of someone trained to wake in an instant. He'd given Frida and Dorothy instructions earlier. If this happens, he'd said, you go to the secured room on the 3rd floor. No matter what you hear, you don't leave. You don't try to help. You understand. They went now, moving quickly through corridors they'd come to know intimately. The secured room was essentially a panic room. Reinforced walls, backup electricity, supplies, a small bathroom. It could sustain 2 people for 48 hours if needed. Frida closed the door and locked it. Then the gunfire began. It wasn't scattered or panicked shooting. It was coordinated, professional. The kind of shooting that meant military-trained people were engaged in serious combat. Dorothy moved to the corner and curled up, trying to make herself small. Frida held her daughter and tried to pretend that everything would be fine. The gunfire lasted for maybe 15 minutes. Then it stopped. Then there was quiet. Then there was shouting, but it was in Korean and it sounded like victory rather than defeat. They waited. Minutes stretched into hours. Finally, Minjun opened the door. He was bleeding. There was a wound on his left shoulder, and blood had soaked through his shirt. But he was moving with purpose and his eyes were clear. It's over, he said. You're safe. The threat has been eliminated. 2 days later, after Minjun had been treated for his wound and after his organization had cleaned up the evidence of the violence, he called Frida to his study. Dorothy had returned to her room for the afternoon. The compound was quiet, almost peaceful, in the way that places become after violence has been resolved. 7 of my people are wounded, Minjun said without preamble. 1 is dead. 12 of the cartel members are dead. 7 more are captured. The remaining members have agreed to leave you alone in exchange for not being pursued further. He was sitting behind his desk, looking exhausted in a way that made him seem more human and less like the careful, controlled man she'd come to know. What does that mean? Frida asked. It means, he said, that you and Dorothy can leave. You can return to your apartment. You can go back to your life. The debt is paid. The threat is eliminated. You're free. Frida understood. He was giving her the choice she'd never had. Leave or stay. But if I stay, she said slowly, then I'm choosing to be with a criminal. I'm choosing a life that involves violence and moral compromise and leverage and control. I'm choosing something that Dorothy will be affected by. Yes, Minjun said. And if I leave, Frida continued, I lose you. I lose whatever this is that's been developing between us. Yes, Minjun said again. That's not a choice, Frida said. That's an impossible situation. Welcome to adult life, Minjun said, echoing words he'd said before. All important choices are impossible. All things worth having require sacrifice. Frida thought of Dorothy, who had asked her not to fall for a criminal but had since changed her mind after spending time with Minjun, thought of her daughter upstairs, who was no longer a child to be protected but a young woman making her own decisions. Thought of the 16 years she'd spent building safety and consistency and routine. Thought of the fact that none of that had actually protected her daughter. Thought of Minjun, who had moved heaven and earth to keep Dorothy safe. Who had paid for that protection with his own blood. who was offering her a choice that was impossible and real and terrifying. I need to ask Dorothy something, Frida said. Of course, Minjun said. Whatever she decides, I will respect. If she wants to leave, she leaves. If she wants to stay, she stays. She gets to choose her own path. Dorothy came downstairs after Frida called her. She looked between her mother and Minjun with the clarity that comes from having survived something terrible and come out the other side still intact. He said we can leave, Frida told her. He said the threat is gone. He said we're free. Dorothy looked at Minjun. Do you want us to leave? She asked him. No, Minjun said. But I need you to choose to stay, not because you have to, but because you want to. I need you to understand what you're choosing before you choose it. I know what I'm choosing, Dorothy said. She looked at her mother. I'm choosing the man who was willing to go to war for us. I'm choosing the life that's complicated and dangerous instead of the life that's respectable and precarious. I'm choosing to understand people instead of judging them. And I'm choosing to help my mother understand that she's allowed to be loved, even if it's complicated. She sat down next to her mother. Mom, you spent 16 years protecting me from everything that might hurt you. You built this perfect life where nothing could touch us. But nothing is actually safe. There's no such thing as perfect safety. You can only build a life where you're loved by someone who understands exactly who you are and loves you anyway. She looked at Minjun. I think you're trying to be better, she said. I think my mom makes you want to be better. I think that's enough. Frida looked at Minjun. He looked back, and there was something vulnerable in his expression that she'd only glimpsed before. I'm staying, Frida said. But I need something from you. Name it, Minjun said. I need you to understand that I'm not choosing the criminal. I'm not choosing the violence or the leverage or the control. I'm choosing the man. And if that man ever becomes more important to you than the criminal, if you ever decide that protecting people is more important than controlling them, then maybe this actually works. Until then, I'm living in your compound and I'm staying, but I'm also maintaining the part of me that understands that this is a calculated risk. That's fair, Minjun said. He stood and walked to her. He didn't touch her yet. He just stood in front of her. And there was something so human in his expression that it broke her heart all over again. I can't promise I'll change, he said. I can't promise I'll become something other than what I am. I can't even promise that you won't regret this choice. But I can promise that I will protect you. And I can promise that every day I'm with you, I'll be trying to understand why someone like you chooses to be with someone like me. That might be enough. It might be, Frida said. He kissed her, and all the contradictions and complications and impossible choices crystallized into a single moment of certainty. Whatever came next, she would face it with this man. Frida still works at Lekki Hospital, though now as a consultant rather than direct patient care. She's become known for her work with trauma survivors, especially those affected by organized crime. Dorothy is in her second year at the University of Lagos, studying engineering, living in the compound but maintaining her independence. She's become fascinated by criminal justice and is considering a career in international law focused on organized crime prosecutions. Minjun's organization is smaller now, more focused on legitimate business, less engaged in the activities that built his fortune. It's not a redemption arc. He's still a man who operates in the spaces between legal and illegal. But he's a man who's consciously choosing to reduce harm instead of creating it. The relationship between Frida and Minjun is not simple. It's not the kind of love story that comes with fairy tale endings. It's the kind of love that exists when two people understand exactly who the other is. Flaws, violence, complications, and all. And choose to love them anyway. There's a restaurant that Minjun is planning to open. It will serve Korean food. The menu will reflect his years in Seoul before crime, before violence, before complexity. Frida has been helping him plan it. Dorothy has been designing the space. It's not redemption, but it's direction. It's not forgiveness, but it's purpose. It's not safe, but it's real. And in a world where safety is ultimately an illusion, real is enough. If you made it this far, you now understand the story of Frida, Dorothy, and Minjun. You understand a desperate mother calling a criminal. You understand a daughter surviving something that should have broken her. You understand a dangerous man trying to be better. You understand an impossible choice. Comment below. Who do you think made the bigger sacrifice? Frida for staying with a criminal? Or Minjun for trying to change what he is? Comment your answer. Because the answer you give tells you something about what you believe is possible in this world. Because the answer you give tells you whether you think people can actually change, or whether they're just performing change to get what they want. Comment. I'll be reading them all.